Got it.
Okay. All right. So Polina, people want to know your take on Ilia, Jason, Vincent, Nathan. Can you break it all down for us? What would you have done if you were on the selection committee?
Yes. Personally, I would have put Ilia on the team over Jason specifically. I know I've been hearing a lot about people being confused about Vincent being on the team, which I think is ridiculous that that's even a question, just because Vincent has 5 quads in his program, world medalist, short program is outstanding, Skate America, all of that. But I think for the Ilia Jason thing, it was just a tough call for the committee of whether or not they wanted to support the component side of skating or the technical side. And so from my perspective, the Olympics is a major sporting event. And I think the technical side should be more important, especially when this is an era of quads. There are men from multiple other countries that are also bringing their A game when it comes to quads. And for Ilia to skate the way that he did, so impressive. The entire world was watching. I think he earned a spot on the team. So that would be my most basic reasoning. And then for like a deeper look into that with everything, the body of work is one of the components for criteria. I think the way that body of work is set up right now hinders younger athletes and helps support older athletes and veterans based off of world standings and the opportunity really to compete at the highest level for multiple years, which when you're younger, you don't really get. And so I think for his body of work, for Ilia's, you have to look at it as the Junior Grand Prix circuit this season, which he had 2 golds on and qualified for the final. And coming into nationals, I've heard a lot about, if he went to the Olympics, it's his first senior international event. How is he going to handle the pressure? Nationals was really high pressure. You could argue the most high pressure because it is the selection, the qualifier for the Olympic team, essentially, even though they don't like to call it that. And he competed against 2 of the biggest names in men's skating right now that will be vying for an Olympic medal, both Nathan and Vincent, and also Jason had made the final as well. So he did compete with some of the top dogs and he held his own and he was the only one to skate clean. So that's what I would say to that argument.
What do you take on the Vincent argument? So Jason is obviously a huge fan favorite, goes back about a decade of him being a fan favorite. Vincent has never been as super popular. So people are pointing out that he bombed at Worlds and didn't make the free skate and then had a problem here. Do you worry that he peaked too early at some point with Nebelhorn and Skate America?
I don't think so. I think for nationals, it's such high stakes. And for him, as well as Jason and Nathan, it's them trying to qualify to a second team. So the pressure is, very real, especially for his content going with 5 quads in a long program. I think, the unders and whatnot, these are unders on quads, not triples. So I would say there's a little bit of an excuse, even though I'm definitely a supporter of skating clean programs at nationals. I will say, you want to peak at the Olympics, not nationals. And he's already shown that he can do it at Skate America and earlier this season. And I think the short program is really the ringer for me here. I was sitting next to Brian Boitano for all the events. And after Vincent skate, he said to me, that was Olympic and world champion quality. He just laid it down. So I think with that, it's simple.
There was actually an argument by some people that felt that Vincent was better than Nathan in the short. They didn't call Nathan's quad. What did you think about the ranking of the short program?
I would agree to that. I think that Vincent skated a stronger short program, just with the quality. The quad triple toe that he did was outstanding. It was right in front of me. The flow and the speed on his landings are really what I consider to be the highest quality in a jump. So if you compare that to Nathan's, Nathan hung on, he landed in one spot and didn't have a lot of flow. So he was just fighting in that program, which Nathan did have more difficult content with a quad flip and a quad lutz combo versus Vincent had a quad sow cow and a quad lutz combo. So a little bit different on that circumstance, but I think that the presentation and the overall emotion that Vincent brought to a short program was it was my favorite personally.
What were your thoughts on the ladies, Polina? Because I heard that prior to the event, you thought Amber could make the team, that you and Mariah were really supporting her in triple axel. What were your thoughts on her short program and the other US women?
Yeah, so I was definitely a huge supporter of Amber going into the event based off of her nationals last year, and just her talent. I think technically she's so strong, and she's been able to show all of the elements in practice time and time again, but practice is not competition. So she definitely did not have the short program that she wanted here, and it is what it is. That's how competition falls. And then she didn't get to even compete the free skate because of the whole testing positive thing. So I think that was really disappointing for her. But for the rest of the women, I think we have some really strong younger skaters that showed great. They showed themselves great at this nationals with both Lindsay and Isabeau. And for Mariah and Karen, they were both about the same for me, just because of the technical content that they're showing, but their skating quality of the components really shines through, and they're really beautiful to watch live as well as on TV because of those reasons. So I think they're going to be focusing on the component side of things at the Olympics, because the tech is just not quite there.
Did you have a strong opinion about Mariah versus Karen? For me, I thought that Karen had it until the last jump when it seemed like both the loop and the double toe were under. Did you have an opinion about, who was better?
I think honestly, I think Mariah was better because Mariah had some mistakes in the free skate, but overall, like the short program of hers was much stronger than Karen's, and Karen just had unders on everything in both the short and the free skate. Starting from the beginning, in the short program, she had a half turn cheated combo. They didn't call it, but if you look at the replay, you can see it. It's fully backwards. Same thing. She opened with a double axel triple toe in the free skate, very backwards half turn. So it just technically was not there. So I would rate Mariah's mistakes as less than Karen's, if that makes sense. But I think they're very equal on a standpoint of like musicality and components. They're both very strong in different ways. Karen's a powerhouse and Mariah is very lyrical.
What would your strategy be for the team event? Which disciplines would you split, and who would you have do which portions?
I would probably split the dance because the dance is so strong, and they both really, really want the spot. And then I think I'd probably split the men just because they're also, I would say, the strongest discipline, and I feel like they're going to want to save their big moments for the individual rather than the team event and not get like burned out. So I guess for the women, like I would only choose one skater, and I think that's going to be a difficult decision because they're all kind of on the same level.
Who would you, in terms of the men, who would you have in the short program and who would you have in the long?
I think they'll probably have Jason do the long because he's the most like, I feel like they're going to want to save Nathan's long so that he doesn't like overdo it before the individual. And then I think Jason's just like really reliable in terms of the content being less. He's going for a lot of triples rather than quads with Nathan and Vincent. So I think they're going to want to save those boys for the individual. And then for the short program, I would guess that they offer it to Nathan. So I think Nathan's going to do it unless he says no and doesn't want to compete before the individual, in which they'll probably choose Vincent because that's the only one left.
Would they usually go by ranking though? Like, wouldn't it be that Nathan would get first choice and then Vincent would get second, since he's technically like the bronze medalist here? Yeah.
I think so. They do go on ranking, and so Vincent will probably get the choice ahead of Jason. So in that respect, it probably will be Nathan and Vincent because they both are going to want the team medal if they were to medal.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think anyone wants an extra medal if you could get it, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Yeah.
How in 2014 did they even talk to you about the team event? Or was it even a discussion? Like, how did that go down?
I wasn't in the discussion, so I have no idea, but I think they do go by asking the highest ranked first in their criteria, and then they get to decide whether or not they do both programs or one or two. And mostly I think people usually choose one because they don't want to burn out before the individual, but there are some cases where a skater will just say, I want to do both if they're offered.
What are your thoughts on Alyssa's season? She's had coaching change about a month ago, and just in my personal opinion, in watching her practice in nationals, it didn't seem like she was the same skater that we saw at the start of the season, just in terms of the way that she was carrying herself. What were your impressions of her? And I don't know if you watched nationals practice as well.
Yeah, so I think since we only got to see a short program from Alyssa, I think it'd be very interesting to see how she would hold up in the free skate. This is a year of growth for her, for sure. I think so was last year, but especially this year, she is going through those natural changes that we all go through as humans, and that is unfortunate timing that it is an Olympic year because she was so good in past seasons. That being said, I think that she performed her short program the way she's been performing it all season. She made similar mistakes. And I think the quality of her jumping elements are not what they once were. Mm-hmm. So I think with the Olympic selection, like I totally understand why they gave it to her, especially with her past, like being US champion and stuff. But again, I think it's really important to see how athletes do in an Olympic season, because that's the most important. And you can have a skater that is developing for 3 years, and on that 4th year, which is the Olympic year, they can be like outstanding. And I think that's the type of skater we choose, not somebody who has been good for 3 years and the 4th year it's like they're not at the top of their game. So yeah, I would say Alyssa has she needs time to adjust, and she's not at her peak right now.
You've seen her Instagram lives, people are asking, that she's been doing, I get more live videos lately. Yeah.
I've seen snippets sometimes. I don't regularly watch her lives though. So I can't really speak too much.
She's having a teenage moment. She's really going through it, I think. Yeah.
Well, I would say yes, but at the same time, she has been in the spotlight for the last 3 or 4 years. So I don't know.
Well, it's just because you talk, Polina, about, she needs some time to grow into her skating and to mature. But my impression after watching the lives is maybe she doesn't see a future in her ideal world in skating, that perhaps that she wants to go to the Olympics, and that's where.
Yeah. I mean, I really have no idea. I think she loves skating is kind of the general consensus that I've heard from people who work with her, that she's not really goal oriented so much on how she's stacking up, more so on like just her love of training and skating. But with that being said, she stacks up very well, so it's easy to say that, of course. And yeah, I have no idea what's going on with her. I think that the change to Colorado a month before an Olympic nationals was an interesting move, to say the least, in a time of puberty where you're already dying stamina wise when you're growing like that in sea level. And so to not have an adequate time to acclimate to such high altitude in training, I think that showed at nationals.
I also think the relationship with her coaches was really awkward. You could tell that they didn't know each other at all in the kiss and cry. And it was just really strange to watch.
Well, to change so close to nationals in an Olympic season, yeah, that you would think, unless maybe they'll get time now to get to know one another better.
Definitely, yeah. There's just not enough time to establish a tight-knit relationship like that. So yeah, it's hard to say.
What's your take on Anna Shcherbakova? Because after the Russian nationals, there was a lot of people who felt that she didn't earn her spot there, and that event was not judged correctly, which I listened to you on your podcast as well, that I believe that you would probably be of that opinion. How about after today? She had a really rough short program at the Europeans. Do you think, will we see her at the Olympics? Like, when you look into your crystal ball, what do you think is going to happen?
I think with her short program, she's definitely she's sunk herself into a deeper hole with like the whole consideration of, is the Olympic spot hers or not? Today she showed that it's not. But that being said, you can't say anything until after the free skate, which she could perform very well. And then that again puts a wrench in things. But I think with the fall on the Lutz today, that showed that her mental strength is not there. And it's not what everyone thought it was. And that's a huge component to competing. And the Russian team is stocked with women who are very strong. So this definitely hurt her.
How strong do you think Trusova is? Because I listened to your podcast and you made a point that she was doing quads, but they were cheated quads. So she doesn't have the skating skills. Her spins are not what they were before. Where do you see her strengths, really?
So I think Sasha, the triple axel fall at this Europeans, she hasn't really been hitting that all season, so it was kind of expected. Or well, not so much expected, but more so unsurprising. And then she hit her other jumps, but for me, I'm not a huge fan of just the technique because she has a major lean forward on the takeoffs of her jumps, and especially in between her triple combo. So for me, like the quality wise of having your back straight is important. But I think she had some nice moments in her program. I do like her skating. I just think that these particular programs this season don't showcase all of her abilities components wise. And I don't think that she's trying to focus on them because it's all about the jumps.
Do you think it matters in terms of the judges?
Not if she lands all over jumps, which, you know, it's, to me, that's unfortunate because I like seeing the combination and not just racing side to side, but I can totally understand why we're in this weird time where we're trying to award the quads because we want to get more women pushing boundaries with that.
Yeah.
Who do you think has stronger components, Shcherbakova or Trusova, if you had to?
Trusova. Well, okay. I think that people think that Shcherbakova has better components, but personally, I can't award Shcherbakova skating because of the turned in feet and the flex toes. Like that is just not it for me because like ballet wise, it's really wrong. And I can't watch her skating and say like, this is beautiful. I can watch Trusova's and say she has nice lines. Absolutely. So I would say that Trusova has the better skating presentation than Shcherbakova. And that's not honest. Like, I think that's something that she should focus and improve on. And I think she could improve on it, but it seems like nobody is telling her to, and the judges don't score her like she should improve on it. So she doesn't. And so I'm not a fan of the way that she skates. I think her upper body is beautiful. I think she has beautiful carriage and lines when it comes to her back and her arms, but the legs really just kill it for me.
Yeah. And it seems like for both of them, just what I noticed, the hunching on their crossovers too, and using their back, like you mentioned, Trusova or Sasha on her jumps. I see the same thing with Anna, that they're both jumping from their back. So whatever line you could have, it just quickly killed the second that they start to jump.
Yes, totally.
Do you think that they're better skaters than Lipnitskaya was? Like back in the, how do you compare them when you've seen now so many from, you actually competed against Yulia, who was kind of the original?
Yeah, I think that the new Russian women, I think the quality of their like jump height and carriage and speed are a little bit stronger than Yulia's were. Because Yulia was doing the triples as well, but they were much like smaller. Like she was spinning them more so than jumping them. Mm-hmm. But that was at a time where doing the triple. There were a lot of women that were doing it, but not to the extent of now where it's like that's just a baby combo compared to what people are doing now. So it's hard to compare them because it was just a different time.
Polina, when we look ahead to the Olympics, is there anyone that you think could be on the podium besides the Russian women?
Definitely. I think Kaori Sakamoto is so strong and so dynamic, like gorgeous to watch, especially live. I think like maybe on screen it might not come off that way sometimes, like if people don't love the athletic style to her skating and they prefer the more dance lyrical style that the Russians have, but I think she's very strong and she's very impressive to watch, and her quality, like her technique and quality are great other than the inside edge on the lets. But I also think Liana has a good chance to, depending on whether or not the Russian women skate clean, because there's no guarantee. They're risking it all with the quads and the difficulty. And if a skater like Leona, who's the whole package, comes out and skates 2 clean programs with her quality of components, it's possible that she lands on the podium. So we'll see.
There could be something, is what you're saying, but depending on mistakes. We had a question in the chat. Where do you think the American women will end up? Do you see them in the mix?
I really have no idea, just based off of, I don't know what the judges are going to be looking for in terms of whether or not they're going to award PCS over the technical. And so far this season, they haven't been. So based off of that, it's hard to say. But I will say, if the American women come in and do what they're capable of with really good quality, and they really just kill it in the components, again, with other skaters who are risking it all with really hard tech, you have no idea where people are going to land up.
Yeah. Depending on how people skate, essentially.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, Karen was 4th last year, and it was, you never know.
You never know.
How much do you think it will come down to the collar at the Olympics? Because a lot of these women we've talked about have under rotations. Anna's Lutz didn't get called under today, and she did fall in it, and it looked under to me. Edge calls, how important will that be, do you think, at the Olympics? Do you predict it will be judged fairly at the Olympics?
Hard to say. I have no idea. I don't necessarily think so, just because the way the season has gone, most skaters don't get called. And if they haven't already been showing that consistency from the tech panel and the judging panel, I don't see why it would magically change at the Olympics. So I think we're going to see what we saw in the Grand Prix circuit.
Yeah. And how do you see do you see the US closer to a silver medal or a bronze medal, I guess, at this point, going against Japan and Russia?
For the team event?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really close, because I think we have really strong skaters in different disciplines. And so that's where it's going to get really interesting, because it really is going to depend on how they all skate. I don't know which one's going to end up at. I can't say.
Now, there is a Russian tarot reader on YouTube who says that an unexpected man will win the Olympics. If this is the case, who do you think it would be?
Who is the unexpected man?
I would say, if I were going off of like my favorite, the person I liked the most on the Grand Prix circuit this year, I would say Yuma. I thought he was so good, and just like the skating skills quality and the beauty and like the quality of his quads. If he were to hit, I would definitely say Yuma. Yeah.
Do you predict Nathan will win, or do you have thoughts about this after nationals?
It's so hard to say. I really don't know. I hope that he skates his best, but I honestly feel like even if he were to skate his best with the quality that the Japanese men also show, it's going to be really close, depending on how everyone does. It's so hard to predict in the men's event, which is really cool, because usually you come in and you kind of think like who's going to land on the podium.
Yeah, kind of like the ladies, I feel, this year. Yeah,
totally.
That way. And hopefully everybody stays healthy too. I think that's a huge unknown at this point, in terms of you can't bet on one person, not knowing what could happen with COVID.
Exactly. It's a scary time for the athletes. I do not envy skating in this season or last.
I was going to say, what would your plan be? So if you had made nationals, what would you be doing now in terms of training and making sure that you stayed healthy? Is there anything that would change?
I think I'd probably just still be at home training, but I would definitely limit where I'm going, who I'm seeing. If it was possible for me to have private sessions on the ice, I'd probably request that, just because you want to be as safe as possible. But I don't think there's much you can do, because even if you were to lock yourself away, and that way you're not exposing yourself to various germs, and that's also not good for you, because then as soon as you step outside, you're more likely to get hit. So it's hard. It's a really hard position to be in.
Yeah.
especially with Nashville. There was not a lot of masks on the street. It was not the most COVID safe environment for the skaters. So yeah, that's a little nervy. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Polina. We love your hot
Polina.
takes. And this is so much fun.
Thank you for sharing your views with us, and
Yeah.
hope that you'll come back after the Olympics
Yes.
too, that we can talk about the action there.
Sure, I'd love to.